Hello, my name is Terri Richey and welcome to my EDUC 526 final presentation. My growth assessment. I graduated from Riverside Poly High School in 1977 and continued on to Riverside City College in the years 1977 through 1979, receiving my AA. Moved on to Cal Poly Pomona, where I worked for my bachelor's degree and had planned to go into the military to follow my father's footsteps. However, in February of 1981, my father passed away of an aortic aneurysm, which totally changed my whole career profession at that time. However, I continued on and received my diploma per my mother and father's request in June of 1981, where I received my bachelor's in physical education and a minor in special ed. A week after graduation, I decided to join the volunteer fire department, Riverside County Fire Department, California Department of Forestry, where I was working as a firefighter 1 and went on to become an engineer I was working as, and I went to training at Station 6. At that training, unbeknownst to myself, I met my future husband, and 11 months later, we were married. And we have now been married for almost 30 years this coming May. I put my life on hold and decided instead to raise my two beautiful children. My daughter was born in December of 1984, and she's now 28 years old and married and has my first grandchild. However, in 1986, we decided to go north to Alaska, and we lived up there for 3 years. And while we were up there, well, I ended up getting pregnant, and we had our beautiful son, who's now 25 years old, and he's a paid call firefighter, and he's also works at Pechanga. From there, we came back, and we ended up having both of them graduate in 2006, 2003 from Martin Luther King High School in Riverside, California. After their graduation, I decided I needed to do something, and I decided to pick Azusa Pacific University. And I went to San Bernardino Inland Regional Center, then on to Murrieta, where I worked and received my credentials in mild to moderate disabilities, and then went ahead and got my moderate severe credential at the same within 2 years. I decided to become a teacher, and I work now with a moderate severe and a special education program at Bright Futures Academy in Riverside. The reason I chose this as a Pacific University is because they are Christ-centered, and they have a very strong reputation for working for people. My favorite classes was EDUC 512, where we learned the inside of a computer, and we went to an Apple store, which was my first time inside. Then we had class 522, where we learned all about our intellectuals. Then went to 514, where we learned how ins and outs of movie making, to 515, where we learned numerous websites that would help us, and now 526, which is the action research. My action research project took hold actually back in September of 2010. I was called by Riverside Medical Clinic that they had an opening, so on September 29th, I went in and had lap band surgery. And from there, I lost a significant amount of weight. However, I've been having some major issues, so my research question became, would walking again help my lap band out? Well, the lap band, as you can see, is a procedure where they close off your stomach, and there's a small portal that is attached under my skin, in which the doctor is able to make insertion of a needle into my stomach, where he can change the size of my intake. From that, I decided I need to do something more. So Dr. Gilbreth introduced me to what's called the Fitbit. And from there, I've decided I needed to learn to walk again so I can make myself more presentable and feel better about myself. So guess what? I started walking and walking. And I discovered that I was taking more steps than I thought I was day to day. And I kept walking and walking. And then I got my husband involved, and we continued to start walking. We were averaging 3 to 4 days a week. And here come some of my best results. I started, as you will see, with 5,590, and I ended this past week with 10,000 on one day. I was so proud of myself. I finally made the mark. So the question was, does the Fitbit help me with my lap band? Yes, it does. However, it takes more than just walking. It takes groups of walking to make it work. And I am continuing to do this so I can continue on my course of action. My unit lesson plan will be on Arctic and Antarctic. Here is my goal. I want to teach kindergarten students about the two poles. First, the Arctic, which is our North Pole, and teaching them about all the different environments that are up there, the different situations. Then I want to teach them about the Antarctic and how it is different from the North and how it is a bigger populated area by way of the people. We're going to learn about the environment and how the environment has a major effect on how the people live. The North Pole area has more Eskimos and people living in the region. However, it also has the most ice that is melting, versus the Antarctic has major research going on by major countries all around the world where they're trying to see what resources they can come up with. The next thing I want to teach the kindergartners is animals. And I want them to understand that there's numerous animals that can only live in these places. We will start with, of course, north, the polar bear. They only live in the Arctic, and that's the only area they can live in the world besides zoos that we see them at. The penguin is a native to the Antarctic, and I want the children to understand how this works too. When you get to the Arctic hare, it is seen in both places, however, primarily in the north. And I want the children to be able to understand this. Then I will make sure they understand how all the animals work together. As you can see, there's numerous animals that live in both places, and I want the children to understand this. Moving on, I would teach them about the Arctic and Antarctic explorers who have gone about and changed the world by their exploring. They went from their comfort zones and tried new places, starting with Mr. Emerson, who was the first explorer to the North Pole, and he discovered numerous trails up there. There's some of his dogs, and I want the people to learn that the dogs love to run, and they love doing dog sledding. So when we do the Iditarod, it won't throw them off. Then we have Dr. Perry, who discovered the North Pole too, and he's very famous for that. Here is Mr. Scott and his team who discovered the South Pole, and they were very important to us, along with Mr. Shellington, who also discovered the South Pole. I want the students to learn all this. My program is geared to special ed, moderate to severe students. The resources I would be using are numerous besides paper resources that you can pick up off the internet. I would use the History Channel to introduce the explorers, both to the Arctic and Antarctic, to the students, and film clips on both the Arctic and Antarctic. I would use PBS because they provide numerous videos in regards to all of the North and the South and penguins and polar bears. Scholastic I would use to get books, because the students need to be able to look at pictures besides using all the computer animation that we use. Finally, student presentations. My students, being moderate to severe, will need the assistance of myself and my staff. However, I think they all can learn how to use a PowerPoint presentation, which would be really a good way for them to learn the basics of a computer, and I think they would enjoy that. I would use Little Bird Tales. This is where they could take a story, even if it's not theirs, and it takes their voice and makes their story come to life. And then finally, I would have the Smartboard, in which I would have the students be working together on making a cute presentation in regards to the Smartboard. So, this is my project. Thank you very much. As you can see, it is the end.